I guess like my first question is more of a general um question. So what feels different this time as compared to like the previous bear markets and crashes that we've seen in the past?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'll start off. I mean, I will say like the difference between this bear market and the last is we have, to a certain extent, which has never been done before, demonstrated product market fit. And sure, it was kind of easy mode. We were in a low interest rate environment. Everything was, fueled by VC, ego, rage, whatever. Um, but we did show that, hey, this does work. It is really, really resilient. So we withstood, crash after crash after crash, insane volatility. And I think fundamentally speaking, whereas in the previous bear market, 2018, 2019, things, what did we have to look back on? We saw ICOs, it's like, okay. And I wasn't around back then, so I'm kind of speaking secondhand here, but, fundraising isn't that cool. It doesn't get people super excited. And a lot of the ideas that were floating around were just that, they were ideas. So now we have, a system that has been in place and worked extremely effectively. And sure, there are still a lot of things like exploits. The UX is still fairly poor, but we at the very least can show off our shining examples and say, hey, when it works really well. And that's kind of why we started Granary, is because, when you think of a shining example, in my opinion, what comes to mind is like Aave, for example. And the tough thing is, Aave, they became the shining example, and then they became mired down in governance and in, an inability to innovate or grow because a bunch of profit. So when Flu came to us with the grant, it was like, hey, I have this really cool protocol. We looked at it. We basically trained their lead developer into a Byte Mason's quality engineer, which I would say is one of the best quality standards in the space. And we started building on Granary, and it was slow at first. We were building liquidation engines. We were building stuff that wasn't super pretty to the end user. But now what we have is a really robust, really resilient lending platform that I'm confident can withstand any level of volatility. While we've been in production, like we've been more successful than Aave in emergency response, like on Harmony, for example. We've been more successful than a lot of our peers in ensuring that we only focus on premium collateral. And at this point, what we're doing with the Grain LGE, and with Grain is we're setting Granary up to become the key innovator in DeFi lending. And I
Right.
think that's, totally, totally possible. And our team's super excited to pour a lot of energy and research into making it the best of the best.
There's
Yeah,
a
definitely.
there's a
And
line there's a line in Harry Potter that goes something like um that like is like the Harry's talking about like seeing magic being used, and he's basically saying that like really subtle effects are more often the mark of expertise rather than loud explosions and flashy like things that draw a lot of attention. And that's that's been my experience, like having Beavis and them help with Granary, is that like yeah, it may not develop as fast as I would have wanted it to initially, um, but that's like a good thing. Like going in and actually having everything tested each and every time, and implementing one thing at a time, testing that one thing, making adjustments to it, then moving on to the next thing. That's more clearly the mark of expertise than like just throwing features at the wall and seeing what sticks, and if it can stick, and so on and
right.
so forth. So
Got it.
Yeah.
So